Hey everyone! Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment, letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. It really helps YouTube recommend more stories like this one to you. Alright, let's jump right in. The second the automatic door slid shut behind me, I knew something was wrong. The air inside the dollar store was colder than usual. Not the kind of cold you feel from bad insulation, but the kind that seeps under your skin. The overhead lights hummed like a swarm of insects, flickering just enough to make the aisles feel longer than they should have been. I was the only one there. At least I was supposed to be. It was my first week doing overnight restocks, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The manager, Dave, said it was easy money. Just me, the radio, and a list of boxes to unpack. No customers. No distractions, but that night something about the store felt off. I wheeled a cart of cleaning supplies down aisle 5, the one with the cheap toys. The shelves were packed with plastic dolls, fake trucks, and those rubber snakes that smelled like burnt tires. The motion sensor light above me flickered twice, then steadied. That's when I noticed it. One of the dolls was facing the wrong way. Every other one stared out neatly from the shelf. Same painted smile, same glassy eyes. But this one, a blonde doll in a red dress, and was turned completely backward. It was stupid, but it made me pause. I reached out to fix it, but the tag caught on my glove and the doll's head spun too easily, like it wasn't attached right. I pushed it forward again and laughed under my breath. Creepy little thing, I muttered. I kept working. The hours blurred like they always do on night shifts. The hum of the fluorescent lights mixed with the crinkle of cardboard and the squeak of my cartwheels. It was quiet, predictable, until I heard the intercom click, a burst of static. Then silence. We didn't use the intercom at night. It was supposed to be shut off when the last customer left. I froze, holding a box cutter in one hand, staring up at the speaker by the ceiling. Another burst of static. Then faintly, a voice, "Clean up," in aisle 9. It was a woman's voice. Calm. Monotone. I checked my watch. 2:13 a.m. A chill ran up my back. We didn't have an aisle 9. The store ended at 8. I stood there for a long time just listening. My breath sounded too loud. My ears started ringing. Finally, I forced a laugh, muttered something about the old system glitching, and went back to work. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. By 3 a.m., I'd restocked most of the cleaning aisle. I was taping an empty box shut when I heard something roll across the floor behind me. A small, light sound like a marble or coin. I turned around. Nothing. Then another roll. This time closer. I crouched, squinting at the glossy floor under the shelf lights. A plastic doll's head, just the head, rolled slowly out from the next aisle and stopped at my shoe. My stomach dropped. The head was the same as the blonde doll from earlier. Red dress. Painted smile. But the eyes were gone. 2 empty sockets staring up at me like holes burned into its face. I didn't touch it. I just backed away, every instinct screaming to leave. But I couldn't quit. I needed this job. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe one of the day shift kids messing around. I grabbed my phone to check the cameras from the store's security app, but the feed was just black screens, with the time frozen at 2:13 a.m., the same time the intercom had spoken. That's when I heard footsteps, soft, slow, coming from the back room. I wasn't alone anymore. Crept toward the stockroom door, trying not to breathe too loud. The plastic strip curtains were swaying like someone had just walked through them. "Dave?" I whispered. No answer. The smell hit me next. Something sweet, chemical, like rotting fruit and bleach. I grabbed the handle and peeked inside. The stockroom lights were off, except for one flickering bulb near the freezer. Boxes were scattered everywhere, and at the far end, near the employee lockers, a shape moved. It looked like someone crouched down facing the corner. "Hey," I said, trying to sound brave. "We're closed, man. You can't be here." The shape didn't respond. Then it shifted. Slow, deliberate. And I saw it wasn't crouching. It was standing but bent forward like its back was too long. That was enough. I slammed the door shut, heart hammering. I ran to the front of the store, grabbed my bag, and hit the emergency exit. The alarm didn't go off. It was supposed to scream the second I opened that door. Nothing but silence. Outside, the parking lot was empty except for my car. The air was thick with fog, curling around the flickering streetlight. I dug my keys out of my pocket and dropped them twice before I managed to unlock the door. I drove home shaking, telling myself I'd quit first thing in the morning. But when I woke up later that day, my phone had 3 missed calls from Dave. The last voicemail was short. "Hey, I saw the security footage from last night. Call me back." Right now, my stomach twisted. I hit play again, security footage. That meant the cameras had been working. When I called him back, he sounded off, quiet, hesitant. "You stayed all night, right?" he asked. "No," I said. "I left after something weird happened." "Why?" He paused, breathing into the phone. "The footage shows you walking the aisles at 4 a.m. restocking, but your car left the lot at 3. My mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" "You're still there," he said. On camera, then he hung up. I didn't go back that night. I told him I was sick, but I couldn't sleep. Every sound in my apartment felt louder. The fridge hum, the wind outside, the floor creaking like someone was walking past my door. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Notification, dollar store, security motion detected. My heart stopped. I hadn't opened the app since that night. I tapped the notification. The live feed loaded, aisle 5 empty. Then, movement. Someone, or something, pushing a restock cart slowly down the aisle. The camera quality was grainy, but the person looked like me. Same uniform, same hair, same gloves. They stopped in front of the toy section, reached for the blonde doll in the red dress. Then they turned toward the camera. The face was blurred like static, but the mouth was moving. I turned the volume up just enough to hear it. "Clean up." In aisle 9. I unplugged my phone and threw it across the room. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, Dave called again, this time angry. "What kind of sick joke are you playing?" he said. "You trashed the toy aisle. There's broken dolls everywhere." "I wasn't there," I shouted. "Check my badge." I clocked out. "You clocked out at 6, I froze. "That's not possible." "I have your signature," he said. "And the cameras show you leaving through the front door." He hung up before I could say another word. That night, I sat in my car outside the store, engine running, staring through the front windows. The lights were on inside, bright and empty. I told myself I was just going to go in, grab my last paycheck, and quit. That's it. When I stepped inside, the air felt heavier, like walking into a room where someone's been crying. I turned off my phone flashlight and listened. Nothing but the hum of the coolers and the buzz of the lights. Then, faintly, that same static crackle from the intercom. "Clean up." In aisle 9, I swallowed hard. This time I followed the voice. Past aisle 8, past the back room, toward the far wall, and there it was, a new aisle. One that hadn't been there before. No number sign. Just rows of shelves stretching into darkness. The floor tiles changed halfway in, from white to a deep shiny black that reflected the ceiling lights like water. The shelves were lined with things I didn't recognize, toys, clothes, trinkets, all covered in dust. Halfway down the aisle, I saw movement. A figure. Standing perfectly still, my breath caught. It was me. Same uniform, same badge, same face, but pale, hollow-eyed, like something had drained it of color. It smiled. Then all the lights went out. When the lights went out, the sound that followed wasn't silence. It was breathing, not mine, deeper, slower, coming from somewhere to my left. I stayed perfectly still, afraid even the sound of my heartbeat would give me away. My phone screen lit up in my pocket just for a second, showing 2:13 a.m. again. That number was haunting me now, burned behind my eyelids every time I blinked. Then the breathing stopped. I took a step back, hands shaking so hard I could barely grip my phone. The flashlight app flickered on and the beam hit the shelves. The aisle wasn't there anymore. Just a blank wall covered in old sale posters. My chest tightened. I knew where I'd walked. I knew that aisle was real, but the wall was solid, like it had been there forever. I backed away until I hit a shopping cart behind me. The metal screech cut through the dark, echoing all the way to the front of the store. Something else moved after that sound. Fast, skittering like feet dragging across tile. I bolted. The front doors didn't open when I ran toward them. I slammed my shoulder into the glass, but it felt like hitting stone. The lights came back on out all at once, bathing the store in that sick white glow. Every aisle was normal again. Every shelf perfectly stocked, except one, aisle 5. The toy section looked like a hurricane had ripped through it. Boxes torn, dolls scattered across the floor, and right in the middle of it, a single mannequin wearing my uniform. My actual uniform. The name tag read Lena. That was me. The sleeves were damp with something dark. I didn't want to look closer, but I couldn't stop myself. I reached out, and the mannequin's head snapped toward me. The jaw unhinged. I screamed and fell backward, hitting the floor hard. When I looked again, it wasn't a mannequin at all. It was a stack of boxes, perfectly ordinary. I was shaking so bad my knees wouldn't hold me up. I ran for the back door instead, straight through the stockroom. The lights were still flickering. The air back there smelled stronger. That same bleach and rot scent. Heavier now. Something dripped from the ceiling onto my shoulder. Warm. Sticky. I looked up and froze. A security camera hung above me. Lens glowing red, except the lens wasn't glass. It was an eye human. Wet. Blinking. I stumbled back, hitting the shelf behind me. A tower of boxes fell, spilling open, all dolls. Hundreds of them, each one with black, hollow eyes. Each one whispering. It wasn't words, not really. Just sounds. Like breath dragging through teeth. And underneath it all, that same voice on the intercom. Clean up in aisle 9. I clamped my hands over my ears and ran. When I burst through the loading dock doors, the air outside was so cold it burned my lungs. The parking lot looked wrong. Too dark, too empty. My car was gone. Only the faint outline of its tire tracks remained, leading nowhere, just disappearing into fog. I turned back toward the building. The lights inside were still flickering, but for a moment I thought I saw someone standing at the register waving, wearing my face. I don't remember driving home. I just remember the feeling, like my skin didn't fit right anymore. Like I'd brought something back with me. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've tried to pretend it never happened. I quit. I blocked Dave's number. I even called HR to say I'd lost my uniform so I'd never have to go back there. But things haven't gone back to normal. Every night, around 2 a.m., I hear the soft hum of fluorescent lights. Not from my apartment, from somewhere else, like it's bleeding through the walls. And sometimes when I pass a store window, I swear I see myself inside, stocking shelves, organizing boxes, staring out at me with that empty smile. I stopped checking my phone after the motion alerts started coming again. Always the same notification. Activity detected, dollar store, aisle 5. But the footage doesn't show me anymore. It shows someone else. She wears my clothes, moves the way I move, but her eyes are black, like the dolls. Last night I finally called Dave again. He didn't pick up, but an hour later he called back, whispering. I could hear paper rustling in the background. Lena, he said, please tell me you're not at the store. I told you, I said. I quit. He let out this shaky laugh. Then who's standing in the break room? My blood ran cold. He sent me a photo, grainy security footage, and there I was, sitting at the break room table, eating from a lunchbox I hadn't used in weeks. The timestamp said 2:13 a.m. After that, I couldn't stay in my apartment anymore. I packed a bag and drove until sunrise just to get away. I stopped at a gas station 50 miles out of town, grabbed coffee, tried to convince myself I was fine, but the cashier wouldn't stop staring at me. When I handed him my card, he looked confused. Didn't you just come through here? He asked, my stomach twisted. No, he blinked slowly. You bought a doll. Blonde hair, red dress. I left the coffee on the counter and walked out without a word. Now I'm sitting in a cheap motel room, curtains closed, lights on, writing this because I need proof that I'm still real. I don't even know what the truth is anymore. Maybe I died in that store. Maybe something took my place. Maybe I am the thing on the cameras. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I swear my reflection lags, just for a second, like it's thinking before it copies me. And last night, I woke up to the sound of a cart rolling across the floor. There's no reason a cart should be in this room. I sat up, heart pounding, and saw the edge of a red dress disappearing under the bathroom door. I didn't move. I just listened, plastic joints clicking. A soft hum like the store lights, then that same voice. Clean up in aisle 9. It's 2:13 a.m. again. I can hear footsteps outside my door. Soft, slow, dragging something across the carpet. There's a shadow under the crack. It stops when I breathe too loud. Then, from the other side of the door, a whisper, my own voice. Your shift isn't over yet. The knob is turning. If anyone finds this, don't go back to that store. It doesn't close anymore. And if you ever hear the intercom say, clean up in aisle 9, run. The first thing that hit me was the smell. It was sweet and rotten at the same time, like fruit left in a hot car for days. It clung to the back of my throat, thick enough to taste. The air felt heavy that night, the kind of air that makes you want to open a window even though you know you shouldn't. I was working the graveyard shift again. Our dollar store wasn't 24 hours, but the manager, Ray, liked to run what he called quiet cleanups after closing. Restock, toss expired food, bleach the freezers. Less hassle, he said. More trust. It didn't feel like trust. It felt like being forgotten. It was just me and the hum of the coolers in the back. They'd been breaking down for weeks. Everything inside sweating through the plastic. We weren't supposed to sell anything past date, but Ray didn't care. People don't check labels, he'd say. If it's sealed, it's safe. But I started noticing things that didn't add up. Customers complaining about the milk tasting metallic. Someone saying the canned soup looked darker than normal. And every now and then, one of the regulars would come in, buy something from the discount bin and then never come back. No one ever talked about it. That night, I was reorganizing the frozen aisle when I saw it again. A small, yellow sticker on a pack of chicken nuggets. Discount expired goods. Except it wasn't the usual orange sticker we used. This one was pale, like it had been printed on old paper, and there was a faint red smudge over the barcode, like a fingerprint. I peeled it back with my nail. Underneath, the expiration date was blacked out. I felt that same tightness in my chest I'd felt the week before when the freezer started humming louder than usual. I told myself it was just laziness, someone covering the label instead of replacing it. But then I noticed something else. Every pack in the bottom row had that same faint red print, like someone had touched each one. I went to find Ray, but he wasn't in his office. The door was open, lights off, the radio buzzing static. His half-eaten sandwich was still on the desk, the bread gone hard. That smell again. Sweet, sour, wrong. I followed it down the hall toward the storage freezers. There's this one door back there, thick steel with a dent in the handle. No one uses it, not since the accident a few years ago. Some story about an employee who slipped inside when the latch jammed. I'd always thought it was an urban legend, the kind coworkers tell to mess with new hires. But that smell was stronger near that door. I hesitated, hand on the latch. The metal was cold enough to burn. When I pressed my ear against the steel, I heard something faint. Not a hum, not machinery. It sounded like a voice, muffled, crying. I stumbled back so hard I nearly fell. My phone flashlight flickered over the sign taped above the handle. The letters were faded, almost rubbed out. But I could still read it. Expired goods. Do not enter. My skin crawled. I turned to leave. But as soon as I stepped away, the handle clicked. Once. Twice. Like someone was testing it from the other side. Ray, I whispered. No answer. The air around the door shifted, colder now, like it was sucking in everything around it. I swear I heard breathing behind the metal. Slow. Wet. I backed away again, forcing myself not to run. The hall light above me buzzed once, then went dark. When it flicked back on, there was a smear on the freezer door. A red handprint. I ran. I locked myself in the front office and called Ray's number, but it went straight to voicemail. I told myself he'd gone home early, that maybe I'd imagined the noise. But then the motion alarm notification popped up on the monitor. Back storage, movement detected. The cameras were all old, low res, but I could make out a shape near the freezer door. Someone standing there. Facing the camera, I leaned closer. It looked like Ray, same uniform, same build. But his face? It was wrong, too pale. Too still, his eyes didn't blink, didn't move. He just stood there, swaying slightly, holding one of the yellow stickers in his hand, and then he smiled. The feed glitched, cutting to static. When it came back, the figure was gone. The freezer door was wide open. I waited until dawn before I left. I told myself I'd quit, that I didn't need to go back. But by morning, curiosity had already started twisting its way through me. I needed to know what was inside that freezer. The next night, I brought my friend Mariah. She worked the morning shift sometimes, loud, funny, fearless. I thought having her there would make it easier. We met behind the store at 11 p.m., climbing through the side door where the alarm wire had been cut months ago. "Jesus, it smells like something died in here," she said, covering her nose. "Yeah," I muttered. "It's been like that for days." She flicked on her phone flashlight and followed me to the back hall. The floor tiles were sticky under our shoes. My breath fogged even before we reached the freezer. The sign, "Expired goods do not enter," was still there. But the red handprint was gone. "You sure about this?" she asked. "No," I said. "But we need to see what's inside." I grabbed the handle. It was ice cold. My finger stuck for a second before it released with a loud clunk. The door swung open. Inside, the temperature dropped instantly, sharp enough to sting my eyes. The light flickered, revealing rows of old shelves stacked with food. Packages I didn't recognize, cans with faded labels, boxes of cereal with brands that didn't exist anymore. Everything coated in frost. "Holy crap," Mariah whispered. "It's like a time capsule." She stepped forward and brushed frost off one of the boxes. The label showed a smiling cartoon chef, except the face was wrong. The smile was too wide. The eyes were just black ovals. "I don't like this," I said. "Hold on," she murmured. "Look at this." She held up a can of soup. The expiration date was scratched off, replaced with a series of numbers. 213, the same number that had shown up on the camera timestamps from the midnight restock. I didn't know that yet, of course. I just stared at the numbers, feeling my stomach turn. Mariah set the can down and started walking deeper into the freezer. That's when the door slammed shut behind us. The sound was like a gunshot. She ran back and yanked the handle. "It didn't move. Are you kidding me?" she said, voice trembling. "Open it." I grabbed it too, pulling until my hands went numb, but it wouldn't budge. The light above us flickered again, and in the reflection of the metal wall, I saw movement. Something was standing behind Mariah. It looked human, but its skin was gray like freezer burn. Its mouth hung open wider than it should, and its breath fogged the air. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. "Mariah," I whispered. She turned, and the thing moved faster than I could blink. The light went out. The last thing I heard was the sound of her scream echoing through the metal, and then a wet crunch like ice breaking. When I came to, the door was open again. The air was warmer. Too warm. My breath didn't fog anymore. Mariah was gone. Only her phone lay on the floor, the flashlight still on. The beam pointed straight at a single yellow sticker lying in a puddle of water. "Discount expired goods." There was something written under it, smeared in red. "Restocked." When I walked out of that freezer, I wasn't the same. I kept thinking I should call the cops, but what would I even say? That my friend vanished inside a locked freezer full of expired food? They'd laugh, or worse, check the security feed and tell me no one else was ever there. So I drove home and showered until the water ran cold. But the smell wouldn't come off. It was still there, hiding under the soap, the same sweet, spoiled stink that clung to the freezer door. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw frost forming on my eyelashes and heard the sound of something breathing behind me. By morning, I'd convinced myself I'd hallucinated. Shock, stress, low blood sugar, whatever. I was halfway through typing a text to Mariah when my phone buzzed first. Unknown. Number. "You left the door open." I dropped the phone. When I picked it up, the message was gone. That afternoon, Ray finally called. "Hey kid," he said, voice rough. "Need you back tonight. Emergency cleanup. Some stuff spoiled." I told him no, but he didn't listen. "I'll pay double. You're the only one I trust with the freezer." Then he hung up. I should have ignored him. But around 8, I found myself driving there anyway, headlights slicing through fog. The parking lot was empty. Lights inside dimmed to a sick yellow. Ray was waiting by the loading dock, smoking. He looked bad, pale, eyes sunken. "Glad you came," he said. "We just gotta clear it out before inspection. Quick job." He handed me gloves. "And don't ask questions." Inside, the freezer door stood wide open again. Cold rolled down the hall like fog. I stopped a few feet away. "Where's Mariah?" Ray's jaw tightened. She clocked out early. Don't go spreading rumors. He turned away before I could answer. But I noticed something on the back of his neck. Small red marks, shaped like fingerprints. We worked in silence, loading expired boxes onto a cart. The food looked wrong under the fluorescent light, meat gray and shiny, cans dented like something had pushed from the inside. I bent down to grab a crate, and one of the boxes shifted. Something inside moved. I froze. "Ray," I whispered. "Did you see?" "Keep working." The box twitched again, a slow, wet sound. Then a corner split open. Inside wasn't meat. It was a hand, small, frozen stiff, fingernails blue. Ray slammed the lid down before I could react. "Don't," he said, voice shaking.
Just don't. I backed away, bile rising in my throat.
"What is this?" He looked at me for a long time. Then he said quietly, "They don't throw the expired stuff out. They send it back. Back where?" He didn't answer. He just stared at the freezer door, the air clouding around him. "That's not a freezer," he muttered. "It's storage." I ran. Didn't even grab my bag. I hit the emergency exit, shoved it open. No alarm, just like before. And didn't stop until I reached my car. When I looked back, the door to the freezer was closing slowly on its own. And for a second, I swear I saw Mariah's face reflected in the metal. Eyes open, lips moving like she was mouthing, "Help me." I tried to call the police the next morning. They sent an officer to check the premises. He called me afterward. Said the place looked fine. No freezer door, no expired stock, nothing. The manager said, "You haven't worked there in weeks," he told me. My mouth went dry. "That's not possible." "I don't know what to tell you," he said. He showed me the schedule. "Says you were let go after a no-show." Then he paused. "By the way, there's a box here with your name on it. Want me to open it?" I didn't answer fast enough, he said quietly. "Looks like food donations. Cans, packaged meat, all labeled expired goods." I hung up. That night, the smell came back. It seeped out of the vents, sticky, sweet, and cold at the same time. I wrapped myself in a blanket and tried not to move. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Security alert. Back storage. Motion detected. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The feed showed the store's back hallway. The freezer door was open. Ray was standing there, shirt soaked through, his breath fogging the lens. Behind him, shadows moved, slow, jerky shapes crawling out of the dark. He looked straight at the camera, held up one of those yellow stickers, and pressed it to his chest. Then he whispered something. The mic picked it up faintly. Restocked. The next morning, news broke online. The store had burned overnight. Electrical failure, total loss. They said no one was inside, but a photo in the article showed the storefront after the fire. The glass windows were blackened, melted into ripples. And on one pane, barely visible through soot, were the words written backward from the inside. 13, it should have ended there. Except yesterday, a package showed up at my apartment. No return address. Inside were 6 cans of soup. Labels peeled, metal cold to the touch. Every single one stamped with the same yellow sticker. Discount, expired goods, and a note tucked between them. You left the door open. I threw the cans in the dumpster and drove 3 towns over to a motel. I told myself I'd stay one night, figure out what to do next. But the smell followed me. I woke up to it seeping through the vent, and when I opened the mini fridge to grab a drink, every shelf was lined with the same yellow stickers. My hands are shaking while I write this. I can hear something moving inside the fridge now. Soft, scraping sounds. Like nails against metal. There's a knock at the door. 3 taps. Then silence. When I look through the peephole, no one's there. Just a small box sitting on the floor. I'm not opening it, but I can see the corner of a sticker already peeling up, red smudge beneath it. And I can smell that same sweet rot leaking through the cardboard. The smell of something that should have been thrown away a long, long time ago. If you ever see that sticker, if you ever hear someone say they're restocking expired goods, don't buy it, don't touch it, and whatever you do, don't open the door. The first time I saw him, the store lights flickered so hard I thought the power would cut out. We get weird customers all the time at the dollar store. Late-night wanderers, folks looking for snacks or batteries. But he wasn't like that. He moved too quietly, like he was underwater, and every time the fluorescence blinked, he was in a slightly different spot. I was on register, half asleep, counting change by muscle memory. It was close to midnight. Ray, the same manager from before, had put me on closing again even though I'd begged for morning shifts. "You're good with the weird ones," he said. "They like you." He was wrong. The bell above the door jingled and cold air spilled in behind the man. He wore an old gray coat, sleeves frayed, collar stained dark. His eyes were the first thing I noticed, flat gray, no shine, like river stones. "Evening," I said automatically. He didn't answer, just walked past the counter and down aisle 3, the mirror aisle. You know those cheap body mirrors we sell? The ones barely held together by cardboard frames? The whole row of them faces the back wall, reflecting the candy shelves across the way. But when he passed them, the reflections rippled. And where he should have been, there was nothing. Just empty space. At first, I thought it was the light, maybe the glare. But when I leaned sideways, my own face moved in the glass and his didn't. A shiver ran up my arms. He spent almost 20 minutes in the aisles, never touching anything. I heard the faint scrape of his shoes on tile, the hiss of his breath. Then he came up to the counter with 3 items, a candle, a hand mirror, and a pack of gum. The candle was one of those white prayer candles with a faded saint printed on it. But the face of the saint had been scratched off, replaced with a swirl of gray marker. He placed everything on the counter one piece at a time, movements stiff and careful. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of coins, old, tarnished, heavy. I didn't recognize the currency. When I tried to ring him up, the register froze. The screen went black, beeping once before the drawer popped open by itself. He counted out the coins without looking. Exact change. When I looked back up, he was smiling. Or maybe trying to. It didn't reach his eyes. "You keep the mirror," he said softly. His voice sounded like it came from somewhere else, like the radio picking up static between channels. I didn't move. He pushed the small hand mirror toward me. "You'll need it." Then he turned and walked out. The bell over the door didn't ring this time. I stood there for a long time, staring at the glass doors. Outside was empty. Not even tire tracks in the fresh dusting of snow. When I looked down, the mirror was still on the counter, face up. My reflection looked back, but it wasn't quite right. My expression was slower, delayed by a second like an old video feed. I told Ray the next day, tried to make it sound like a weird story instead of a panic attack. He laughed. "Probably a shoplifter. Cameras will catch him." But when he pulled the footage from the night before, it showed nothing. The door never opened. No one walked the aisles. And for the 20 minutes I swore I'd seen the man. The camera pointed straight at me, still frame, frozen, my face motionless at the register. Ray frowned, tapped the keyboard. "You asleep standing up?" I didn't have an answer. That night I couldn't shake the feeling I'd brought something home. My bathroom mirror kept fogging even though I hadn't showered. Once, when I wiped it clear, there were fingerprints on the other side of the glass, 5 perfect prints dragging downward. 2 days later, he came back. I heard the bell, looked up, and there he was again. Coat dripping meltwater from the snow outside. Same items, same coins. This time, when he handed me the money, his fingers brushed mine. His skin was ice cold and dry, like paper. "Still have the mirror?" he asked. I nodded before I realized I was doing it. "Good," he said. "Don't look in it after midnight." Then he smiled again, wider this time, lips cracking at the corners. A small drop of dark fluid rolled down his chin. I stepped back. "Sir, you're bleeding." He touched his face, looked at his fingers. "Am I?" he whispered, almost curious. When I blinked, the blood was gone. He walked out again without the candle, leaving it flickering faintly on the counter even though it wasn't lit. The wick glowed dull red, like a coal under ash. I grabbed my bag and went straight to the break room. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped my phone twice before I got the flashlight on. The employee mirror above the sink was fogged again, though the rest of the room felt like a freezer. This time, when I wiped it clean, the reflection didn't match the angle of my hand. It was off by half a second, enough that I could see my face waiting for the movement before copying it. I stepped back, heart hammering. "Stop," I whispered. The reflection didn't. It smiled. When I came in the next evening, Ray wasn't there. The assistant manager said he'd called in sick. His office light was on, though, and I could see through the small window that the mirror from the candle display was propped on his desk. The glass was cracked straight down the middle. I tried to ignore it and focus on work. Halfway through my shift, the power flickered again. Aisle 3. The mirrors rattled against the wall. Then the overhead speaker clicked on. Not static, breathing. "Don't look," the voice said. I froze. "Don't look." The sound came from the speaker right above the mirror aisle. Low and wet, like someone whispering through water. And then, shattering. Every mirror on the wall cracked at once. A sound like bones snapping. Shards scattered across the floor, catching the light in jagged flashes. In the largest remaining piece, I saw the man in the gray coat standing behind me. He raised one finger and pointed at the reflection of my chest. When I looked down, there was a smear there. A gray fingerprint right over my heart. I called the cops. They came, walked the aisles, wrote a report, left. Probably vandals, one said. Cheap glass. But when I tried to show them the footage again, the cameras had recorded nothing after 11:59 p.m. Every timestamp stopped right before midnight. That's when I remembered what he'd said. "Don't look in it after midnight." I went home and shoved the little hand mirror into a drawer. Wrapped it in a towel, told myself I'd throw it out in the morning. But around 12:30, I woke up to the sound of glass sliding against wood. The drawer was open. The mirror was on the floor, face up. And though the lights were off, I could see a reflection glowing faintly in it. My bedroom, but darker, deeper, like it extended farther than the walls allowed. Something moved in that reflection. Just at the edge of the frame, a hand reaching out. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I waited until sunrise and drove straight to the store. Ray's car was in the lot, but the lights inside were dim. His office door was closed. I knocked once, twice. No answer. When I opened it, the smell hit me. Cold metal, old pennies. The cracked mirror on his desk was gone, and taped to the chair was a single photo, printed from a security feed. It showed the man in the gray coat standing behind Ray at the register, one hand resting on his shoulder. Ray wasn't reflected in the counter mirror at all. I turned to run, but something moved in the convex safety mirror above the aisle. Not my reflection. His. He was standing right behind me again, closer than before, breath fogging the glass. I didn't turn around. All I heard was his voice, whisper soft. I didn't go back to the dollar store after that night. Ray stopped answering my calls. I told myself I was done, that I'd find another job, something far away from that fluorescent graveyard. But when you've seen something like that, you start noticing reflections everywhere. Windows, phone screens, puddles. You start realizing how fragile that line is between what's real and what's watching. It's been 2 weeks now, and last night, the mirror came back. I found it leaning against my apartment door, wrapped in brown paper. No name, no note. Just mine. I knew it was the same one. Small, cheap frame, a single crack across the bottom corner like a smile. I didn't touch it. I pushed it into the hallway and tried to ignore it. But an hour later, it was back inside, propped neatly on my kitchen counter. The lights keep dimming when I walk by it, like the apartment's breathing. Every time I glance at the mirror, I catch something wrong with my reflection. My mouth slightly open when it shouldn't be, my hand lifting a second too late. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Then I started testing it. I'd move my head suddenly or blink twice. My reflection always lagged behind. Always just a little off, and sometimes it didn't move at all. I covered it with a towel, but the fabric started to frost over from the inside. There's no reason a mirror should be cold. That's when I noticed the fingerprints on the glass again. 5 prints dragging downward, the same as before. Only now they were pressed into the other side like someone was trapped in there trying to get out. I tried throwing it away. I carried it out to the dumpster behind the building and dumped it in. The second it left my hands, I felt this rush, like static pulling at my skin, tugging my breath. When I got back upstairs, the apartment felt too quiet. I turned on the TV just for noise, but the screen stayed black. Then for half a second, my reflection appeared in it. Only I wasn't sitting on the couch. I was standing behind myself. I unplugged the TV, heart hammering. The static stayed on the screen. That's when the power went out completely. The entire apartment plunged into darkness. The air turned cold and thick, and I swear I heard whispering. Not words, just breathy sounds that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Then, metal scraping. From the kitchen. I knew what it was before I saw it. The towel I'd used to cover the mirror was gone. It lay crumpled on the floor, wet and stiff with frost. The mirror stood upright, glowing faintly in the dark. In the reflection, my kitchen was empty. But my reflection wasn't alone. Behind it, behind me, the man in the gray coat stood motionless, his head tilted just slightly, the corners of his mouth pulled too wide. His hand rested on my reflection's shoulder. I backed away until I hit the wall. The real kitchen was empty. But in the mirror, he leaned closer, his face hovering just above my reflection's ear. His lips moved. A moment later, my own breath fogged the air in front of me and I heard his voice. Impossibly close, almost done, the mirror rattled. Hairline cracks spread across the surface, pulsing like veins. The reflection started to move, slowly stepping forward, pressing palms against the inside of the glass. That's when I ran. I didn't grab my phone, my keys, nothing. I just ran down the stairs and out into the street barefoot, the cold pavement burning my feet. It was snowing lightly. The streetlights buzzed and flickered, and every window I passed showed my reflection walking a step behind me. Not in sync. Not me. By the time I reached the end of the block, I could still see something moving in the reflection of a car window. Gray coat, watching me from across the street. I didn't stop running until I reached the 24-hour diner by the highway. Inside, the warm air hit me like a wave. The waitress gave me a look but didn't say anything when I sat down at the counter shaking. "Coffee?" she asked. "Please," I managed. While she poured it, I glanced up at the mirror running along the wall behind the counter. Only half the booths reflected in it. The rest were swallowed by shadow. I stared at the glass until my own reflection finally appeared. But when I raised my cup to drink, it didn't. It just sat there, smiling faintly while I trembled. I left cash on the counter and ran again. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. No mirrors, just a TV and a bathroom with a fogged-up window. I thought maybe I'd be safe there. But when I turned on the sink, the sound of the running water distorted, like something was breathing through it. And faintly, in the ripple of the faucet, I saw that same gray coat moving past behind me. I didn't turn around, I couldn't. The air temperature dropped so fast my breath turned white. The faucet began to drip even after I shut it off, each drop hitting the sink in time with my heartbeat. Drip, drip, drip. Then one drop splashed red. I backed away slowly. The sink filled with cold mist, and when I wiped the steam off the small mirror above it, I saw myself staring back, but not from the same angle. My reflection was leaning closer. It whispered something I couldn't hear at first. Then the words came clearer, like the sound was traveling through my bones. "He's here." The lights cut out again. Total dark. And then I heard footsteps outside my door. Slow, deliberate. The soft scrape of shoes against old carpet. 3 knocks, I didn't move. The doorknob started to turn inch by inch. Metal creaking, then a voice, low, muffled. Coming from just beyond the door. "You left the mirror open." I pressed my hand over my mouth, trying not to breathe. After a long silence, I heard the faint click of something being set down. Then the footsteps faded. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty, but leaning against the frame was another mirror. Larger, older, the edges warped. Taped to the center was a single photo. It was me, sitting at the motel desk, staring into the camera, only the picture was taken from inside the mirror. I'm writing this from the motel lobby. There's a security mirror above the front desk, and every few seconds I can see the gray coat moving behind the clerk, though he doesn't seem to notice. I think it follows reflections, like a sickness. Once you see it, it sees you. I can feel myself fading a little more each day. My reflection lags longer now, sometimes a full 3 seconds behind. Sometimes it doesn't come back at all. Last night, for a few minutes, there was nothing in the bathroom mirror. No me. Just empty glass. And then I heard my own voice from the other side whisper, "It's better here. I don't know what happens when you disappear completely. Maybe that's where Ray went. Maybe that's where Mariah went and all the others. Maybe they're standing right behind the glass, waiting for someone else to take their place." I've covered every shiny surface in this room. TV screen, window, even my phone. But the moment I close my eyes, I can feel it there, watching from the other side, waiting. If you ever see a man in a gray coat in a reflection where he shouldn't be, if you ever hear your own voice whisper back a beat too late, don't turn around, because if you do, you'll finally match your reflection. And once you do, you can't come back. The chain on aisle 9 was never supposed to be there. It hung across the opening like a cheap velvet rope, a little yellow sign zip-tied to the middle. Employees only, do not enter. Thing is, we didn't have an aisle 9, our dollar store only had 8. I knew because I swept every one of them every night in the same tired loop before closing. But the evening the aisle appeared, I swear I'd just finished mopping when I looked up and saw it stretching out from the stockroom door. A brand new row of shelves that hadn't been there an hour earlier. It was too long, too clean. The floor tiles were lighter, the fluorescent light above it a colder white that made my skin look gray. I called out to Ray. No answer. The store was dead quiet except for the buzz of the ceiling lights and the soft tick of the wall clock behind the register. The air smelled different too, sharp and metallic like the freezer section after a defrost cycle. I told myself it was some kind of overnight renovation project. Maybe the district manager had us slotted for expansion. Still, the sight of that plastic chain made my stomach knot. I took one step toward it. The floor creaked beneath my shoe, and something at the far end of the aisle where the light faded into shadow moved. Just a quick shift, like a head ducking behind a shelf. "Hello?" I called. "We're closed." Nothing. The motion sensor light above the register clicked off, plunging the store into half dark. Only the new aisle stayed bright. I stood there for a long minute before grabbing my phone to text Ray. The screen froze on the loading icon. No signal. When I looked up again, the chain was gone. I did what any underpaid night clerk would do. I clocked out early and left. Outside, the parking lot looked normal, though the windows reflected the interior brighter than they should have, like the store's lights were still on. When I got into my car, the reflection in the glass didn't match the angle of my headlights. It showed the store doors open and the faint outline of someone standing inside. I didn't stick around to find out who. The next morning, Ray called. "You didn't finish closing checklist," he said flatly. "And you left the mop out," I almost laughed. "Ray, there's something wrong with the store. Don't start," he cut me off. "Just come in tonight. We've got a delivery." He hung up before I could argue. That night the store smelled faintly of ammonia. Someone had scrubbed the floors until they shone. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect, except for the aisle. It was still there. Same chain, same pale light humming above it. Only now the sign read, "Temporarily closed for stocking." When I asked Ray about it, he stared at me like I was speaking another language. "What aisle?" "Aisle 9, I said, pointing. He frowned. "We only have 8. You sure you're not overtired?" He walked straight toward the stockroom door, right past where the chain hung, and kept going. On his side of reality, there was nothing there. But on mine, the chain trembled as he passed through it, links rattling like wind chimes. That's when I realized I was the only one who could see it. By 11 p.m., the store was empty. The radio crackled softly with an old pop station, the kind that loops the same 5 songs from the early 2000s. I told myself I'd just peek. One quick look to prove the aisle was some weird optical illusion. The chain was cold when I touched it, slick with condensation. I unhooked it and stepped through. The sound in the store changed immediately. The hum of the lights dulled, replaced by a deep, steady thrum that I felt more than heard. The shelves were lined with normal stuff, cleaning wipes, off-brand cereal, paper towels, but the labels were blank. Just white packaging with faint gray outlines where text should be. My footsteps echoed even though the floor was vinyl tile. Each shelf stretched longer than it should have. Like the aisle was expanding as I walked halfway down, I heard another set of footsteps matching mine. I turned around. Nothing. But when I faced forward again, one of the packages had changed. The outline on its label wasn't empty anymore. It was a blurred photograph, someone standing in the same aisle, head tilted toward the camera. I dropped it and ran. But the way out kept shifting. The end of the aisle never got closer, no matter how fast I moved. The lights flickered, and between flashes I could see shapes behind the shelves. Faces half-formed, like they were pressed against the plastic from the other side. Then the overhead speaker crackled to life. "Clean up in aisle 9, it said in Ray's voice. Clean up in aisle 9. The repetition made my teeth ache. Every time it played, the voice grew wetter, like he was gurgling the words through water. I slammed into a shelf corner and the world blinked. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the break room floor, my mop bucket overturned beside me. The clock read 12:07 a.m. The chain across the stockroom door was gone. I told myself it was exhaustion, that maybe I'd passed out mid-shift. But my phone showed a new photo in the gallery. One I didn't take. It was a picture of aisle 9, empty and endless. At the very back, a figure in a green apron stood with their head turned sharply toward the camera. Me. When I came in the next day, the first thing I noticed was that every clock in the store was gone. The wall above the register was empty, a pale square where the clock used to hang. Even my watch had stopped working sometime during the night. 7. The same time I'd woken up on the break room floor. Ray wasn't there again. A new guy was, someone I'd never seen before. He wore a name tag that just said T. Burns. His uniform was perfectly pressed, but the logo was off somehow, like it was an older version. "You the closer?" he asked, voice flat. "Yeah," I said slowly. He smiled without showing teeth. "Good. Just keep things neat tonight. Don't touch aisle 9. The way he said it made my skin crawl. The store was empty by 10. No customers, no deliveries, no sound except the freezer's low hum. Every few minutes, I'd glance at the space between aisle 8 and the stockroom, half expecting the chain to be gone again, but it wasn't. It was there, bright yellow under the buzzing lights, swinging just slightly like someone had brushed past it. I kept my distance until I heard something drop, a hard, plastic clatter echoing from beyond the chain. I froze. Another sound followed, softer, a voice whispering low, too quiet to make out words. "Ray?" I called. The whisper stopped. Then, slowly, a hand reached out from behind the end cap, pale, thin fingers curling over the edge of the shelf. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The hand slid away, and a box fell into the aisle. It was one of the blank white ones. I shouldn't have looked, but I couldn't help it. There was writing now. My name, stamped across the side in faint gray letters. Inventory, returns. Something inside the box shifted. The sound was wet, like something trying to breathe through plastic. I ran to the office to call Ray, but the phone just hissed static. When I tried my cell, there was no signal again, just a blank screen with the time stuck at 12:07. I looked up and nearly screamed. The monitor for the security cameras was on, even though I hadn't touched it. The feed showed aisle 9, except this time it wasn't empty. The new guy, Burns, stood halfway down the aisle, motionless, facing the camera. His eyes glowed faintly from the light above, like an animal caught in headlights. I blinked and he was closer. Another blink, and closer still. Each frame showed him stepping toward the camera, a single footfall at a time. Then the feed cut to black. The office lights flickered and went out. The sound started again, the same wet breathing, now louder, echoing down the aisles. I grabbed the flashlight from under the desk and swung it toward the door. Something moved past the crack in the frame. A shadow, long bending wrong at the joints. I pressed my back against the wall, light trembling in my hand. The breathing stopped. And then a voice. Right outside the door. "You're not supposed to be here." It was Burns, or what sounded like him. Only the voice came from multiple places at once, like it was bouncing off the shelves, layered and distorted. I held my breath. The door creaked. His arm slid through first, too far, stretching at the elbow like his bones were made of rubber. His fingers found the light switch and flicked it off completely. Darkness swallowed everything. I ran. I don't remember pushing past him, or how I ended up back at the front of the store. 1 second I was in the office. The next I was stumbling toward the doors, flashlight beam bouncing wildly over the floor. They didn't open. The automatic sensor clicked again, but the glass stayed sealed. Through the reflection I could see aisle 9 behind me, except it wasn't behind me anymore. It was everywhere. The shelves multiplied, stretching out in all directions, mirrors of mirrors, reflections feeding back into themselves until I couldn't tell which way was real. I turned and ran down one of them. The further I went, the more wrong the products became. Cans with no labels, boxes breathing softly in their wrappers, a row of mannequin heads staring blankly toward the end cap. Each head had a sticker across its mouth. Discount, returned. The humming sound deepened until it felt like it was inside my skull. My flashlight started to flicker. I stopped running when I saw light ahead, familiar yellow fluorescence spilling from an open space. The stockroom. I pushed through the last stretch of shelves and froze. It wasn't the stockroom anymore. It was a hallway, long, narrow, lined with doors, each one labeled with a name tag in the same dull font: Ray, Mariah, Burns, and then mine. The door with my name was slightly open. Something whispered from the crack. Inventory complete. I turned and bolted the other way. Every door started to open as I passed, one by one, hinges groaning, hands slipping out to reach for me. I slammed into the chain blocking the exit and fell through it, crashing into aisle 8. The lights snapped back to normal. The humming stopped. Behind me, where aisle 9 had been, was just the stockroom door. Closed, plain, no chain, no sign. When the morning crew came in, they found me sitting on the floor by the register, covered in dust and holding a blank box. Ray was with them. He looked tired, confused. "Kid, what the hell happened?" I tried to explain, but the words didn't make sense out loud. He called someone from corporate, then sent me home. Before I left, I asked him one thing. "Ray, what happened to the new guy?" "Burns?" He frowned. "Who? That was 3 days ago." I haven't gone back. But today, when I checked my porch, there was a package waiting for me. No address. No postage. Just a plain white box stamped faintly across the side. Inventory, returns. Inside was my name tag, and underneath it a single yellow chain link. It's 12:07 again. Every clock in the apartment says so. And when I looked at my reflection in the window just now, the lights behind me were flickering. There was a faint glow, white and cold, stretching out past my living room wall, like the beginning of an aisle that shouldn't be there. If you ever see a chain blocking off an aisle that wasn't there before, if the lights feel too cold, or the air smells like metal, don't cross it, because once you step inside, they start counting. And once they count you, you're just another item on the shelf. I've worked night shifts at the dollar store for almost 2 years, and nothing really shocks me anymore. Shoplifters, drunks, kids daring each other to steal candy, whatever. You see it all. But the night I saw her on the security feed, I swear something inside me changed, like a switch flipped. It started slow. With that same flicker the lights always do around 11:30. 1 second they're buzzing normal, the next, they blink out just long enough for the silence to feel alive. That's when the cameras froze. Usually, they glitch for a frame or two, then jump back. But this time, every single screen on the monitor wall stopped at once, 6 feeds all showing different parts of the store. At first, I thought it was another system crash. But then I noticed her. In every frame, a girl standing motionless, facing the camera. Not the same spot either. She was in each feed separately. One by the toy aisle, one near the freezer, one in the parking lot, another behind the counter where I was standing, except I was alone. I checked. I spun around so fast my chair squealed, but the store was empty. Just the hum of the lights and the soft buzz of the soda fridge. When I looked back at the monitors, the screens were normal again. The girl was gone. I told myself I was tired. Lack of sleep. Maybe I'd stared at the screens too long and my brain had double-imaged someone's face. But something about her stuck in my head. The way she looked at the camera. Her eyes were wide, almost too wide, and her mouth was slightly open, like she'd just realized something she shouldn't have. The weirdest part? The grainy footage showed what looked like one of our uniforms. Same black polo, same green apron. That night, I dreamed I was sitting at the monitor wall again, but all the screens were mirrors. When I leaned closer, the girl leaned too, but when I lifted my hand, hers didn't move. She smiled. The next day, Ray told me we had a complaint from corporate. "System flagged your register," he said. "Missing cash from last night," I laughed. "Yeah, I wish," he didn't laugh back. "You sure you closed out properly?" I did everything the same as always. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Then why'd the tape show 2 closers?" "What?" He turned the monitor toward me. The footage played back at 12:03 a.m., me counting the drawer, tapping the keys. Then about a foot behind me, a blur shaped like a person. The frame sharpened for a second. It was her. Same black polo, same apron. Only her face was blurred, like the camera couldn't decide what she looked like. She moved when I didn't. standing still while I walked away, then stepping forward as soon as I turned my back. And when I disappeared out of frame, she stayed. Just standing there, watching. Ray said it must be a double exposure or bad playback, but I could tell by how pale he went that he didn't really believe that. I didn't either. By midnight, I was back in the office again, telling myself I'd figure it out. The store was quiet, too quiet. I flipped through the feeds one by one, checking the aisles, nothing. Then for just a second, I caught movement in the reflection of the monitor glass, something behind me. I turned. No one there. But when I looked again, one of the cameras had changed angles slightly, like someone had bumped it. It was the feed for aisle 6, the one with the mirrors and picture frames. She was standing at the end of it, still, head tilted slightly to one side. My stomach dropped. "Hello?" I called through the intercom, my voice shaky. She didn't move. I grabbed the flashlight and walked out, telling myself it was a trick of the reflection. The beam swept across the aisles, paper goods, cleaning supplies, snacks, all normal. Then I turned into aisle 6 empty. No sign of her. But on the floor near the mirrors was a single smudge, shaped like a bare footprint. Small, wet. The air smelled faintly like static and rain. I followed the trail halfway down the aisle until it stopped in front of the biggest mirror we sold, the one that leaned against the wall, still wrapped in plastic. For a moment, I saw only my reflection. Then she stepped into it, not behind me, in the glass. Her hand lifted, pressing flat against the inside of the mirror, fingers splayed. The plastic crinkled, fog forming under her palm. I stumbled back, flashlight trembling in my grip. Her eyes moved slowly toward me, like she was struggling to focus through the surface. Her mouth opened. The sound that came out wasn't speech, it was feedback. High, sharp, like a microphone pressed too close to a speaker. Then she vanished. The mirror went black for half a second, then showed nothing but me again, pale, shaking, eyes wide, except I wasn't holding the flashlight in the reflection. I called Ray again, voice shaking. "Someone's in the store." "I saw her," he sighed. "The girl?" "Yes." He was silent for a moment. "I told you that footage was old. We had someone quit last year, maybe the backup file glitched." "It wasn't a file," I said. "She's here. I saw her in the mirror." "You sure you're not overtired?" "Ray, sometimes go home early," he said. "We'll sort it tomorrow." Then the line went dead. I hung up the phone and looked back at the monitors. Every screen was black, except one. Camera 4, aisle 6. The girl was back, but this time, she wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking up toward the ceiling. I followed her gaze in the feed. Above her was the vent shaft, the one that runs through the back of the store. A drop of condensation formed on the grate in the video. It fell, straight toward her, and then the feed cut out. I heard the thud a few seconds later. Something fell in the real vent above me. I stared up at the metal grate. A faint sound came from inside, like something dragging its fingers along the duct walls. It stopped directly overhead. Tap, tap, tap. I backed toward the office door, every hair on my neck rising. The vent rattled once, then again, and then, softly, a voice whispered through it, distorted, like it was coming from a long hallway. "Can you see me now?" The voice from the vent made every muscle in my body lock up. I stared at the ceiling, flashlight shaking, heart thudding so hard it felt like the sound might echo up into the duct. "Can you see me now?" It whispered again, quieter, like the voice was learning how to talk. That's when I realized what was wrong with the tone. It was my voice, the same pitch, the same rhythm. Like someone had recorded me and was playing it back through a speaker full of static. I didn't wait to hear it a third time. I bolted out of the office, my footsteps echoing sharp and loud against the tile. The air felt thicker near the aisles, like the store was holding its breath. I aimed my flashlight up at the ceiling. Every vent grill I passed was trembling slightly, not shaking from airflow, shivering, as if something was crawling behind them. I made it halfway to the front doors when the lights cut out. The whole store went dark except for the faint green glow of the exit sign. And then, from somewhere deep in the back, I heard a sound that didn't belong in any building. Metal screeching against metal. Like something big was forcing its way through the vents, I ran faster. The doors didn't open. The sensor light flashed red like it couldn't recognize me. I pounded on the glass. "Hey, anyone out there?" The parking lot was empty. My car was the only one there, dark and silent under the buzzing street lamp. Then something flashed on the glass in front of me. For half a second I thought it was lightning until I saw my reflection. She was standing behind me in it, her head tilted. My mouth moved, but hers didn't. Instead, she smiled, an awful stretched grin that reached too far. Her teeth were gray. I spun around. No one there. Just the rows of aisles disappearing into the dark. But the reflection didn't go away. She was still there, in the glass, smiling back. Then slowly, she lifted her hand and tapped the inside of the reflection. Tap. Right where my heart was. The glass rippled like water. I stumbled back, tripping over a display bin. The sound from the vents grew louder, closer, until one of the grills above the freezer aisle burst open with a metallic clang. Something dropped out. It wasn't a person. Not exactly. Just a shape, gray and soft-edged, like static had poured itself into human form. It landed silently, head twitching and short. Glitchy movements, then it turned toward me. Even from across the store, I could see the faint outline of an apron. My apron, and the face, if you could call it that, was just flickering video noise, shifting between my features and hers, over and over like the system couldn't decide which one was real. It started walking. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Every time the light flickered, it got closer, aisle by aisle, step by step. I grabbed the mop handle from the janitor's closet and backed toward the register. My hands were slick with sweat. When the thing moved under the overhead lights, they buzzed louder like its presence overloaded the current. By the time I reached the counter, it was less than 20 feet away. "Stay back," I yelled, swinging the flashlight beam into its face. It didn't stop. The beam passed through it for a second, like through fog. But for that brief moment, I saw something inside the static, a face pressed against glass. A reflection, mine, and it was screaming. The lights all went out at once. The store plunged into total blackness. Only the emergency exit sign glowed faintly green, outlining the aisles in a pale haze. I could hear it moving now, bare feet slapping against tile, slow and deliberate. Then it stopped right in front of me. I couldn't see it, but I could feel the cold radiating off its shape, like the air itself froze around it. My breath came out in quick clouds. It leaned close. I heard the faint crackle of static near my ear. "Why did you leave me?" it whispered. I didn't understand until that moment that the voice wasn't mocking mine. It was mine. Older, tired, sad. And suddenly I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. The girl who used to work here before me. The one who went missing. Ray had mentioned her once, months ago. Said she quit suddenly after a night shift. Never came back for her paycheck. But that wasn't true. Because the camera footage he'd shown me, the one where 2 closers appeared, that wasn't an error. I was closing with her. And somehow, she'd never left. "Please," I whispered. "What do you want?" The voice came again, overlapping mine in perfect sync. "Please, what do you want?" The thing stepped closer until I could smell it, damp, metallic like wet copper and ozone. Then, suddenly the monitors in the office flickered on all at once, flooding the dark with their glow. The screens showed every angle of the store, and in each one, the figure appeared standing behind me in all 6 feeds, the same way she had the first night. Her expression changed slowly, glitching between faces. Sometimes mine, sometimes hers, sometimes something in between. Then in every feed at once, she looked directly at the camera and smiled. The power came back with a pop that made my ears ring. All the lights blazed on. The figure was gone. I was alone again, standing behind the counter, shaking. The mop handle clutched so tightly my knuckles were white. The vents were silent. The cameras were still. But when I looked at the nearest screen, it showed the front of the store. Me, breathing hard, staring at the monitor. Then, a second figure appeared behind me. For real this time, I didn't turn. I couldn't, I just watched as her hand lifted, slow and gentle, resting on my shoulder. The moment her fingers touched me, the feed froze. Then it went black. I woke up outside, in my car. The sun was rising. The store door was locked and my key didn't work anymore. When I peered through the glass, I could see someone moving behind the counter, another cashier, wearing the same uniform, and the girl from the footage was standing next to him, invisible to everyone else. Her pale face reflected faintly in the screen of the register. She looked out at me and smiled. That was 3 nights ago. I tried to quit. Ray won't answer my calls. Corporate says there's no record of me ever working there. But last night, my TV flickered on by itself. Static filled the screen, and for just a second, the store appeared aisle 6, the camera angle tilted down. I was behind the counter again. Only, I wasn't moving. The girl was. She leaned close to the camera, whispering the same words I heard in the vent. "Can you see me now?" Then the screen cut to black. If you ever work a late shift, and you catch something in the reflection that shouldn't be there, don't look twice. Because sometimes, the camera doesn't just record you. Sometimes it remembers you, and sometimes it wants you back. The first thing I noticed about her was the smell. Not bad exactly, just old. Like damp paper and dust from a box that hadn't been opened in decades. She came in right before closing, that weird hour when the lights hum a little louder and the air feels heavy. I was restocking the candy rack by the counter when I heard the chime above the door. She moved slow, each step deliberate, her shoes scraping against the tile. Her hair was thin, grayish, pulled into a bun that looked like it might collapse at any second. She wore a brown coat too heavy for the weather, sleeves swallowing her hands. And she carried a jar, a huge glass jar, the kind people use for pickles. It was filled to the top with pennies. "Evening," I said, forcing a polite smile. "We're closing in 10. She didn't answer. She walked straight past me to the cleaning aisle. The jar clinked softly in her arms as she moved. From behind, she looked wrong. Her spine curved too sharply. Her shoulders didn't move with her steps, they stayed stiff, like her body was remembering how to walk. I turned back to the register, pretending not to notice how quiet the store had gone. A few minutes later, the jar hit the counter with a dull thud. She stood there, expressionless, the glass gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I glanced down. Inside the jar, the pennies weren't the same color. Some were bright copper, some nearly black, others green with age. A few looked almost wet. "Just this?" I asked. Her voice creaked like wood bending under weight. "1." She slid a single item onto the counter, a small porcelain figurine from the shelf near the seasonal aisle. It was one of those cheap angel statues, wings chipped, eyes painted wrong. I scanned it. $5.25. She didn't reach for a wallet. Instead, she unscrewed the lid of the jar. The smell hit me first. Metallic, sharp, like old blood and vinegar. She reached in slowly, hand vanishing into the pile of coins, and pulled out a handful that clattered across the counter. One of them rolled to the edge and fell, spinning on the floor before landing heads up. I bent to pick it up. It wasn't a penny. It was blank. No face, no numbers, no engraving. Just a smooth circle of dark metal. When I looked up, she was smiling. Her teeth were gray, same color as the coin. I told her we couldn't accept money that wasn't legal tender, but she just stared at me. Her eyes were pale and milky, but not blind, more like glass that had been filled with smoke. "Count it," she whispered. I swallowed. My register light flickered. "Ma'am, count it." Her voice cut through me like a whisper in a cold room. I started counting just to make her stop. 2, 3. The coins were cold. Too cold. The longer I touched them, the number in my head began to slip. Had I counted 5 or 6? The pile didn't shrink. Each time I moved one coin aside, 2 more seemed to slide out from beneath my hand. When I finally looked up, her face was closer. She hadn't moved her feet, but she was somehow leaning over the counter. Her breath fogged the glass between us. "You dropped one," she said. Her tone was calm, almost kind. I looked down. The blank coin I'd picked up earlier was gone. When I glanced back at her, she was holding it between her fingers, turning it slowly. For the first time, I saw something carved faintly into the metal, just one word. My name. I stumbled back from the counter so fast I hit the display rack behind me. A row of dollar lighters crashed to the floor. She didn't flinch. She just placed the coin on the counter right above the total on the screen. The register beeped once, then twice. Transaction complete, no total. No change due. Then the drawer opened on its own. Inside wasn't cash. It was filled with pennies. The same mix of colors, red, green, black. Some of them looked wet. I slammed it shut. When I looked up again, she was gone. The door hadn't chimed. The jar was still sitting on the counter, lid screwed tight. I ran outside, looked both ways down the parking lot. Nothing but the hum of the streetlight and the distant sound of cars. When I went back in, the figurine was gone too. I almost quit that night. But when Ray asked what happened the next morning, I couldn't explain it without sounding insane. I said some lady paid in loose change and left. He laughed, called it a classic dollar store customer. But later, when I opened the drawer to start my shift, all the regular bills were gone. Only pennies, and right on top of them the blank coin. This time, it didn't have my name, it had the date. Tomorrow's date. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the gray teeth, the glassy stare, the sound of her hand stirring those coins like dry bones. Sometime after 2 a.m., I heard something faint outside my apartment window. Clink, 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 like metal hitting glass. I went to the window, heart hammering. The street below was empty, except for a single penny on the sill. Wet. And when I picked it up, I saw the faint outline of a face stamped into it. Not Lincoln. Me. I didn't go in the next morning. I couldn't. I called Ray, told him I was sick. He just sighed and said, "Fine, but you're on nights again tomorrow." Then he hung up before I could argue. That night, I barely moved from the couch. Every little sound made me jump. The fridge humming, pipes knocking, even the tick of the clock on the wall. Around 11 p.m., I heard it again, that soft clink, clink, clink against the glass. I turned off the TV and sat in the dark, listening. The sound wasn't coming from the window this time. It was coming from the kitchen. I grabbed a flashlight and moved slowly down the hall. My socks slipped on the linoleum. The noise got louder, sharper. When I reached the counter, I saw the source, a jar. The same jar, sitting right where I keep my coffee. Only it wasn't full of pennies anymore. It was full of water. Dark, cloudy water. And floating near the top, pressed against the inside of the glass, was that blank coin. Except it wasn't blank anymore. It had a face now. The old woman's. Her eyes were open underwater, staring straight out. The second I saw it, the jar cracked from the inside. Just one long fracture running down the middle, water seeping out across the counter. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair, heart slamming in my throat. When I blinked, the jar was gone. Just a damp ring left behind. I didn't sleep at all. When the sun came up, I convinced myself it had to be stress, some kind of waking dream, but I still went back to work. I wish I hadn't. The first thing I noticed when I walked in was the smell. That same metallic tang, faint, but there. "Ray?" I called. No answer. The lights flickered when I passed the freezer aisle. Something dark smeared the floor tiles, small circles like wet shoe prints leading toward the counter. When I got closer, I realized they weren't wet. They were rusty, and the jar was sitting there again. Right where she'd left it. Only now it was half full of pennies again, dark ones, sticky looking, clumped together like they'd been soaked in syrup. My register light blinked. New transaction pending. The screen flashed once, then displayed a single line of text. Customer return. I tried to cancel it, but the button didn't respond. Then a number appeared on the total display. The same as the figurine. My stomach twisted. I turned around and she was standing in the aisle. Same coat, same bun, same gray smile. Her jar was gone, because it was on the counter. "You forgot your change," she said softly. Her voice was wet, like she was speaking through water. "I don't." She stepped closer, coins clinking faintly with each move. "You kept it. You have to give it back." I shook my head. "I didn't take anything." Her eyes flicked down to the drawer. Against my will, I looked too. It was open again, and inside, where the pennies should have been, was a photo of me, taken from behind the counter. My hand was outstretched, holding something small and shiny. The coin. The lights buzzed overhead. The hum turned low and deep, vibrating in my teeth. She reached toward me. Her sleeve fell back and her hand was wrong. Too gray, too smooth. The skin looked like metal polished thin. "Debt," she whispered. "Always paid, one way or another." I stumbled back, hit the display rack. Plastic toys spilled to the floor. When I looked up again, she was closer. Her hand touched my chest, cold as ice. I gasped, but the air didn't move right. It was thick, heavy, like breathing through syrup. Her fingers pressed harder until I felt something slide, not over my skin, into it. I screamed, but it came out muffled, like I was underwater. Her face hovered inches from mine now, eyes pale and endless. "You dropped one," she said again. Then everything went black. I woke up on the floor behind the counter. The lights were on, music playing softly over the speakers. Morning. Ray stood above me, looking concerned. "What the hell happened to you?" I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. She came back, the old woman. With the jar," he frowned. "What woman?" "The one who paid in pennies. You must have seen her on the cameras," he sighed. "We checked. You were alone all night. You passed out around midnight. I think you need a break." He helped me up and walked me outside. I didn't argue. When I got in my car, I realized my apron felt heavier. Something weighed down the pocket. Inside was a single penny, old, dark, stamped with a year I didn't recognize. 1925, maybe. The last number was worn away, and across the back, scratched faintly into the metal, was one word. Returned. That night, I threw the coin out my window. I watched it fall into the parking lot below. The next morning, it was back on my kitchen counter. That same old smell filling the air, and next to it sat the angel figurine, the same one she bought. Its porcelain hands were cupped together now, holding another coin. This one was bright copper. When I picked it up, it burned. It burned hot. I dropped it instinctively. It hit the tile and rolled into the corner. When it stopped spinning, I saw it had changed color again, blackened, smoking faintly, and where Lincoln's face should have been, there was mine. Eyes closed, mouth open, like I was screaming. I haven't gone back to work since. But I keep finding them. Pennies. Everywhere. In my shoes, under my pillow, stuck between the couch cushions. Each one darker than the last. I don't even throw them out anymore. What's the point? Every time I do, I find more. And last night, when I finally worked up the nerve to check the mirror by my door, I noticed something else. For just a second, behind my reflection, the shelves of the dollar store flickered into view. And standing at the register was the old woman, counting, slowly, endlessly. Her lips moved silently as her fingers traced over the coins, one by one, dropping them into the jar. And just before the image faded, I swear she looked up and whispered something. I couldn't hear it clearly through the glass, but I recognized the shape of her mouth. 3 words. Still owe one. If someone ever pays you entirely in pennies, don't touch them. Don't count them, and for God's sake, don't keep one. Because they're not coins, they're promises, and promises always come due.